Hello everyone, and welcome to another SaltStack webinar. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Kendall Lovett. I run product marketing here at SaltStack. I'm joined today by Joseph Hall, one of our senior engineers. So thanks so much, Joseph, for joining us.
It's good to be here.
So today we're going to be talking about SaltStack and ServiceNow and SaltStack's integration. So before we get into it, a couple of housekeeping items. I just want to make sure everyone is aware this is a live webinar, so feel free to ask questions at any time. We will leave time for questions at the end. If we're not able to address your question on the air today, we'll make sure to follow up and have someone send you a response. So please enter any questions that you have. We'll do our best to address as many as we can. In addition, there is an attachments and links section on the bottom of your screen. We've got a few helpful links there that you can go check out, so I'd encourage you to do that. And I think that is it. So with that, let's get started. So the schedule for today is going to be as follows. We're going to start off, I'll give you a brief overview as to what SaltStack is and some of the things that we do. We'll show you how SaltStack integrates with ServiceNow today, how that functionality works, walk through some of the use cases. Joseph will give us a live demo of the product in action, and then we'll take questions. So let's get into it. So first off, what is SaltStack? For those of you who are unaware, SaltStack is an automation platform. We've been around for about 7 years now. We help companies control, optimize, and secure their IT environments. When we say IT environments, that incorporates everything from on-prem servers, virtualized environments, cloud, even containers and Kubernetes, network devices. We try and provide a solution that can encompass a wide range of IT systems. And we'll talk about how we do that in a little more detail today. So SaltStack is used by companies around the world. We're managing over 100 million endpoints worldwide for some of the companies like the ones you see here. So why do companies choose us? Well, just real quick, as I mentioned earlier, control, optimize, and secure, that's a little bit high level, a little vague. So let's talk specifically about what we mean. So when I say control, one of the things SaltStack is known for is our ability to operate at incredible levels of scale. So we've got customers managing hundreds of thousands. I believe our largest production deployment right now is over 300,000 endpoints, very fast, with a lot of agility. In addition, people use SaltStack's simple, powerful automation to replace redundant scripts with a unified automation approach. So a lot of times we find siloed teams using various tooling, various types of bash scripts or whatever else to get the job done. SaltStack takes away a lot of the risk and the redundance and waste of time caused from that. We also provide an ability to manage across hybrid and multi-OS environments. So customers will abstract away multi-cloud, on-prem/cloud environments using SaltStack, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. And finally, SaltStack goes beyond simple automation to do advanced orchestration. So we can orchestrate complex workflows. For instance, if you need to update a network device that needs 13 steps to get its firmware to a secure state across 20,000 network devices, SaltStack can do that work, can automate and orchestrate that process. And the benefit of all of these things is our customers see years of labor eliminated. From the optimized front, again, reducing the high cost of engineers performing repetitive tasks, get them working on things that are going to impact the business rather than running repetitive jobs, increasing your ability to deploy. I just heard from a customer recently that at one point it took them 32 days to provision and deploy a cluster of virtual machines for testing. With SaltStack automation, they've gotten that down to 5 minutes. We also allow teams to improve mean time to resolution, particularly when it comes to SaltStack's ability to respond automatically to events happening in a system. So a server is not responding, SaltStack can automatically attempt some things to repair that, for instance, rebooting the server, improving mean time to resolution. And finally, we empower the broader team. As we'll discuss today, we'll show you in the interface how SaltStack uses self-service automation, and this is combined with ServiceNow in this case to provide a wider range of functions for team members that maybe aren't jumping onto a command line as a root user who you would not want to do that. And again, the benefit, the reason that companies do this is that it allows them to save tons of time and money by doing so. And finally, SaltStack has specific product offerings and capabilities around security. So we offer 2 products today as part of our security suite that allow you to do things like actively detect and remediate OS and infrastructure vulnerabilities. We provide, I believe today, 33,000 checks based on 12,000 CVEs, and our library is growing continually that will both check and remediate those vulnerabilities. In addition, we provide a product called SaltStack Comply that allows you to enforce CIS certified policies across your systems, both build the compliance as code, if you will, and then make sure that that is deployed in a compliant state and remains in a compliant state using SaltStack event-driven automation. And finally, the ability to maintain additional compliance with policies such as NIST, PCI, HIPAA, and coming very soon, DISA-STIGs. And of course, the benefit of this is a compliant and secure environment that avoids many of the catastrophic breaches that come just as a side effect of having known vulnerabilities out in the wild. So that's SaltStack. I mentioned we've got 3 products that we have available today: SaltStack Enterprise, which is our core system to control IT systems, and then I mentioned our Comply and Protect add-ons to SaltStack Enterprise. Today we're going to be talking about the SaltStack Enterprise integration with ServiceNow. So without further ado, let's do that. So here's how it works from a architecture stance. So typically users use ServiceNow to do all sorts of very powerful ITSM, ITOM type tasks. It's become a system of record for a lot of companies managing these systems. But there's always a gap between the workflow or the process happening in ServiceNow and how that change is actually enacted on the systems. Now, there's a lot of ways you can go about doing this. ServiceNow does have some great integration with specific systems such as AWS or others to go let that system make a change. But when it comes to when it comes to changes across a wide variety of systems, usually you're using different tool sets. You're using multiple different things. So have a ticket created for an update to a Cisco router or whatever, and that Cisco engineer is then going to have to go use whatever tool they use to make that change. A different tool may be used for a Juniper device on the network side. The same can be said for our cloud teams. One of the things I mentioned earlier is that SaltStack strives to allow teams to make unified change and holistic change and management across different types of systems. So this allows us to, and I'm just going to pause here real quick. For those of you who joined us late, I do see a couple of questions from the audience. We will take time at the end to address questions, so please send them our way. But we will hold those until the end. So send your questions on. We'll make sure we address them. So back to this. We take an approach of managing multiple types of systems. So what we've built today is the ability now for ServiceNow and ServiceNow users to interact and deploy those actions and those automations directly from the ServiceNow interface. So what SaltStack passes over to ServiceNow. So from the ServiceNow interface, as Joseph will show us in our demo here in a few minutes, there's several things available to a ServiceNow user. Now, I do want to point out that all of this is imposed. All of this has role-based access controls imposed on it. So ServiceNow users will have authorization to go in and to view or not view the specific SaltStack integration within ServiceNow, allowing you to maintain control of who has access and what they can do with that access. So let's talk about some of the SaltStack specific things that we make available. So when it comes to system attributes, one of the beautiful things about SaltStack is that we're constantly collecting data on a system. So we're collecting information about the system, which we refer to as grains data. It's basically, you could think of it as metadata or system data. There are hundreds of different attributes for these systems, things like everything from OS family to BIOS version of a machine to version of an application running. So one of the things that we can do is take this system, get an up-to-date scan of what is happening on the system, what is the state of the system, and then use that to create a target. And so above you'll see target groups, and this is the ability for us to come in, ingest that data, and create a target group. And a target group can be, as we'll show you today, specific to an operating system like Red Hat, like RHEL, or it can be specific to an application running on those operating systems. So you could target, Firefox across multiple operating systems. And because SaltStack acts as an abstraction layer, it knows how to manage, in this case, Firefox or whatever, running on different types of operating systems. It knows what packages to pull down, what changes to make, etc. Another type of data we expose in the ServiceNow interface is called pillar data. This is basically how in SaltStack we allow teams to define, to create variables that can be defined about the host, so things that we want to have introduced to the host. The other thing we expose is the ability to run jobs and the job history directly from the SaltStack interface. So let's talk about how that works. So from ServiceNow users can pass jobs and create and edit jobs, as well as create and edit target groups that will be deployed into SaltStack. And again, this is all managed and controlled by ServiceNow access controls. So once that's done, again, as I mentioned earlier, one of the benefits of SaltStack is that we provide a hybrid and a broad approach to infrastructure management. So for instance, in the cloud, we provide the ability to control and automate tasks across cloud providers, the big guys, as well as a bunch of others. We have about 25 cloud providers that we support today, like the ones you'll see on the screen, as well as a bunch more. We also provide solutions for Linux, Windows, Unix systems such as AIX and Solaris, virtually any flavor of Linux you can imagine. In addition, on the network side, we provide support for Juniper, Cisco, Arista, Palo Alto, and others. So again, this allows a ServiceNow user now to go in and run a job across any of those systems based on target groups that are either predefined or that they create based on the need to enact change on a system. So from the reason that SaltStack is able to do this, I just want to call out for a minute. I talked earlier on about some of the benefits of SaltStack's ability. SaltStack is unique in the fact that we're running on an event-driven platform, meaning that we have a persistent connection to the system that is two-way, that allows the system to constantly send information back to SaltStack. It's lightning fast based on a 0MQ event bus that allows us to take and have a cyclical two-way communication with the system itself, which allows us to do things like event-driven automation. So for instance, watch this configuration file. If this configuration file changes, change it back. Or watch the system. If someone logs in as root on this production box, kick them off. There's a broad range of use cases and abilities with SaltStack event-driven automation. In addition, I want to call out that a lot of people think of SaltStack as an agent-based platform. And while it's true that our agents are extremely powerful, they're unique in the fact that they are intelligent, meaning that they can both detect changes on a system and do the work on the system itself, which allows the work to be distributed. So the work is not all happening on the master, it's happening on the agent. In SaltStack terminology, we call them minions. So the work is happening on the minion itself, asynchronously. In addition, though, SaltStack provides several other options for systems management, including an SSH and WinRM-based agentless approach for Windows and Linux devices, as well as what we'll call a proxy minion approach, which allows us to use an API to communicate with certain systems that maybe do not have the ability to run either an agent or an agentless option. This is a very common use case for network devices. It's also very common for IoT to use a proxy and to use an existing API, or it could be a service or an application. I mean, I believe if you check out the SaltStack modules, you'll find proxy APIs for everything from Google Suite to an Arista box. So that's some of the ways that we're able to manage these systems. In addition, SaltStack is very modern. It's based on Python. We use simple YAML syntax under the hood to manage these systems. And as I've already mentioned, it allows us to do hybrid system abstraction. So who would be an ideal user for this type of solution? Well, really anyone. But commonly what we see our customers doing, as I mentioned earlier, is exposing this functionality to certain teams who have specific tasks on specific devices that they need to manage. And so this provides a controlled environment where an L1 or an L2 support individual, for instance, would come in and use a ticket in ServiceNow to run a very specific job that they've been given access to through the proper role-based access controls, In addition, security and compliance teams who need to run scans or other things through the SaltStack interface could do so. Departmental IT, so another common use case is you have, especially in large organizations, you've got maybe a marketing team who needs an Apache web server spun up or configured. Rather than doing that in sort of a shadow IT type environment where it's just they're running their own stuff, now we can use an integrated interface to get approval and then give them empower them to actually go and run that themselves without having to wait on a bottleneck of the IT team to go and deploy it, which is not fun for either team, right? In addition, network teams, development teams who need to make requests for dev environments or other types of changes on their systems could use this ServiceNow integration to do that work. So again, the benefit of this is from the ServiceNow side, we're now providing automation that is governed. It has process management built around it. I've already mentioned several times that we've got in-scope access. We're doing this in what for a lot of companies is a system of record or a place of tracking these transactions. We've also got the ability to build in approval workflows. And finally, we're exposing these to users in a familiar interface that they're already going into. They're already used to going in and doing work in ServiceNow. We're not asking them to learn a new platform. On the SaltStack side, I've already mentioned some of the use cases here, but the benefit is that now we're able to go in and, as I've already said, do things like deploy a cloud or an on-prem server environment, deploy virtual clusters, automate configuration changes, do things like patch vulnerabilities or update compliance profiles, and then obviously, as I've mentioned, centralized cloud control if we're using multiple cloud vendors. And these could be public cloud environments, but these also could include private cloud or other types of systems that you're deployed on. So with that, let's get into a demo. So Joseph is going to switch over to our demo environment here. I will set the stage. This is going to be a fairly simplistic demo given our time today. But what we wanted to show off is just how a ServiceNow user could go in and run a SaltStack job in the ServiceNow interface. So in this environment, we're going to have two users. We're going to have a first user who we'll call a security analyst. This is John Adams. Is that our first user, Joseph?
Yeah, John Adams.
Okay, we got John Adams here. So John is going to detect that we've got a CVE or an alert out for Apache. Then there needs to be an update. So he's going to go and request that we make a change in the ServiceNow interface and submit an incident. So Joseph, I'll let you take it from here.
Yes, I'm just filing a ticket right now to update the Apache version on specifically on Red Hat Enterprise servers. Okay, and did you want to talk about these search results?
Yeah. So one of the other things, we'll just call out here that ServiceNow provides a lot of out-of-the-box process workflows and jobs that you can run, right, and from the ServiceNow interface. So things like, virtual machine deployment, several of these, SaltStack can go and do this work for the team. So there would, you could incorporate SaltStack into a workflow, for example, where the execution arm would actually be deployed instead of, again, going and configuring specific tools to do all this work. You could have most of these tasks be done directly through the SaltStack interface based on jobs and workflows created in ServiceNow.
Right. So let's go ahead and submit this ticket. And I'm going to go ahead and switch over to another user. I'm going to switch over to Abraham Lincoln, who is our SaltStack user in this instance. So Abraham Lincoln is going to be signed in. He's going to be looking at the incidents that are assigned to him. He's going to see this incident from John Adams saying that the Apache version needs to be updated across the Red Hat Enterprise Linux servers. So let's go ahead and pull up the SaltStack interface now. Go ahead and type in Salt into the filter navigator. And real quick, just to point out the areas that are in here right now. we have a list of target groups. These are specifically the machines that you can send the command to. We've got some target groups in here right now that come pre-populated with SaltStack Enterprise. If we were to switch over to the Enterprise interface, then we can go ahead and add new targets. Let's see. Going to go ahead and do this for OS. Actually, we're just going to do, instead of RHEL, we're going to say RHEL 7 specifically. And so we're going to go ahead and set this to, let's try this again. There we go. We'll set it to Red Hat Enterprise Linux 7. And we can go ahead and add more criteria here as well. Say, for instance, we want to do RHEL 6, but maybe not RHEL 8. Then we can go ahead and add the OS finger for RHEL 6 as well, and then leave out RHEL 8 because maybe RHEL 8 isn't affected by this. Okay. We're not going to save this one. This just as an example. So let's switch back over here and look at the RHEL target group that is in here. I do want to point out that we have the ability to add and edit target groups inside this interface as well. It's a little bit cleaner from inside the SaltStack Enterprise interface, but if you have a need for ServiceNow specific users to go ahead and modify these, then you have that ability.
Yeah, I do want to call out that in this case, you know, we've specifically we're targeting RHEL instances, but as I mentioned earlier, a target group does not have to be OS specific, right?
Correct.
So you could target, this could be an issue that's affecting RHEL and CentOS and Ubuntu or you know, Windows 2012 or whatever, and you could create a target group that spans across those by using the grains data that Joseph just showed us, which is a very powerful ability to go in and allow for teams to create jobs that will do work quickly and across a broad range of either operating systems or applications or system types, etc.
And in this case, since we're talking about Apache, then it's likely that only the web servers are going to be affected. So perhaps we could set up a target group that involved Red Hat Enterprise Linux and then servers with web in their name.
Yeah.
Okay. And then we've got the jobs in here. These are populated from SaltStack Enterprise. Again, you can create and edit jobs in here, but it is a little bit cleaner from the SaltStack Enterprise interface. The important thing here, though, is that your ServiceNow users will have the ability to actually run a job. So the job we're going to run is called a high state, and for those of you that aren't in the know, a high state is a way of saying that we're going to perform a software update across the affected systems. In this case, the software update that we're particularly interested in is Apache, but this is a general software update. I'm going to go ahead and choose Red Hat as our server type, or as our target group. And then I'm going to go ahead and run that job.
Yeah, in this case, we'll be running an Apache update on those environments that you've targeted.
Right. Now this is an asynchronous command, so if we click on job history and go ahead and refresh that, we'll see that the SaltStack Enterprise server has picked that up. The affected masters, Salt masters, are going to have already picked that up. They retrieved that information, and they're going out and performing updates across the Apache servers.
Yeah, and I just call out the importance of an asynchronous, as Joseph said there, as an asynchronous command. I mean, again, the benefit is, unlike with an agentless only approach, or unlike certain other ways of doing this, we're able to just go target those groups, say, hey, raise your hand if you've got this version of Apache installed. If you raise your hand, then say, okay, here's what you need to do. Here's the high state you're going to run, the job, go do the work, and that happens asynchronously, allowing it to happen very quickly and with minimal load on the SaltStack's master side, allowing things to happen fast and again, at very large scales if we need to.
Now, while we're waiting for this command to finish, it's probably a good time to go ahead and look at some of the other information that's available to us in here. We can look at the job history, and this is all job history, not just which was created in ServiceNow, but also the jobs that were created inside the SaltStack Enterprise Interface. Those are all available to us. Also, in this setup, this is a very tiny setup. It's only got one minion on it, but we can go in and look at the grains for that minion. He talked about, for instance, the BIOS information, the OS family, the kernel, and so on. So these are pieces of information that are available to look at inside ServiceNow. These grains are things that are defined by the machines themselves, by the minions. We can also define inside SaltStack Enterprise something called a pillar, which is a little bit like a grain, but it's defined on the master itself and then distributed out to minions that way. So let's go ahead and go back and look at the job history. We'll go ahead and give that a refresh. And we can see that our high state has been completed. There's our job state right there. Okay. And in fact, if we want more information on here, we can go ahead and move over to the SaltStack interface and look at the job in here. You can see we've got one successful machine, and we click on the job ID and we can see the information about that job. Okay.
Yeah, excellent. Just, do you want to run back over to the ServiceNow interface and just make sure that we... Yep, so it looks like that completed.
Yep.
Fantastic. Great. So yeah, again, that's a very simple use case here. One of the things Joseph and I discussed was, incorporating in a workflow. For our time's sakes today, we didn't have a chance to do that, but you could build this out where you've got a table included that is pulling in the SaltStack information and build in a workflow that is repeatable and allows you to have that process built in, and that the end state of that is going and running a SaltStack job to complete it. So
for those of you that are more comfortable with administrating ServiceNow, when you download the SaltStack integration into ServiceNow, you will have access to a manual that discusses the API that is available to you, so that you can issue script commands from inside your workflows.
Yeah, very good. Okay, thank you so much, Joseph. We'll switch back over to the slides here. I just want to take a couple minutes to make sure we answer questions. Again, as I said, if we don't get a chance to get to your question today, we will make sure that someone follows up with you. I'd also call out that, from the attachments and links section, please go check out our ServiceNow integration, and you can request a more in-depth demo. We'd love to get with you. The other thing I'll call out before we start answering questions is that one of the benefits of SaltStack is that we're extremely extensible. We're API driven, so everything running under the hood is driven through API, through Python libraries, which allows us to have a lot of different directions we could go. We want to hear from you. We want to hear, if you're a SaltStack Enterprise customer or you're interested in becoming one, we want to hear your use case, what you would like to be able to do, and then we'd like to work with you to figure out how we can make that a possibility. So I will say that this first version that we've released of the ServiceNow integration provides some of the fundamental capabilities we've discussed today. We do have some ideas for the roadmap, but we're always looking for more input on how we can build those out. So with that, let's answer some questions. So first question I've got here, so asking about how to get access to the ServiceNow integration. It is available through SaltStack Enterprise. So it is an integration that's included in our SaltStack Enterprise console. It is not an additional charge, so it's included with every version of SaltStack Enterprise starting at 6.0, I believe. Is that right? 6.0 and plus?
I believe so.
Yeah, so SaltStack Enterprise 6.0. Also asking about version support. So today, SaltStack Enterprise is certified for New York, Madrid, and London. And I'm going to have Joseph keep me honest here.
That is correct.
Okay. Let's see, what other questions we have? Someone's asking about demonstrating the Windows agentless integration for SaltStack. We don't have time to do that today, but we'd love to show you how that works. It runs through WinRM. That is, again, a benefit that is offered to SaltStack Enterprise customers that we maintain on the enterprise side. We'd love to show you that. So if you'd like a demo, reach out and we will we'll get with that. Some questions around the ServiceNow side. So Joseph, I'll let you take some of these. So, do SaltStack security solutions integrate with ServiceNow SecOps out-of-the-box playbooks for security incident response?
They do not in this phase, no.
So yeah, not yet, not today. But as we've said, SaltStack is open source under the hood. We've got a lot of ability to play with that, and so we'd love to talk with you about how we could help you do that and work together to get that done. Can you expand on the value proposition for SaltStack for organizations that are already utilizing ServiceNow orchestration? How does it extend or replace ServiceNow orchestration? So yeah, I'll take a first shot at that. What we see is that when it comes to unified automation, ServiceNow is a fantastic tool for workflows and governance, and they've done a great job extending that, especially for certain types of orchestrated tasks across tooling. Really what we see from a lot of the ServiceNow orchestration is an orchestrated workflow that is across various tools. So for instance, I need to offboard a user, employee who's left, and I need to make sure that that happens within a certain time frame after the employee quits. So we've got a ServiceNow orchestration flow that helps make sure that we're picking that up and then using the proper tools to revoke access, things like that. Where SaltStack is going to help is on the IT systems side. So when it comes to, again, updating firmware versions for network devices or for deploying a configuration across various types of systems, that's where you would come in and use the ServiceNow integration that we've illustrated today to do work on those systems themselves. And that's the value that we see customers providing to their end users as well. So again, a lot of this work you can do from SaltStack directly. However, you've got teams, you've got certain individuals in the organization who need access to them, but you don't want them either directly on the command line, and maybe they're not comfortable in the SaltStack Enterprise interface. We want to make sure we're doing this through a controlled, especially in highly regulated industries, that we've got the process in place. And that's the value that this integration provides to existing customers is, I already know I'm going to do this work with SaltStack. I already know I need to go in and run this automation, but I need to make sure that it's approved, that there's a paper trail, that we've got the right audit in place, and we're able to do that by utilizing the ServiceNow interface.
There was a question there about how to limit jobs to specific ServiceNow users. I can point that out real quick. I've gone into the information screen for Abraham Lincoln, who is our user that has access to ServiceNow, and we have roles set up for the various tables inside ServiceNow. So we can limit people to just specific tables here just by assigning them that role or assigning them to a group that has that role.
Yep, yeah, so you're using ServiceNow's built-in controls to do that. There's a lot of excitement, I can tell, about this integration. We've had a ton of questions, so I apologize. We're not going to be able to answer them all today. But let me see. I think we've got time for one or two more. So Joseph, do you see any others? I'll look through these as well.
There's a question here about whether the integration is possible with the open SaltStack product. This integration is designed specifically for the SaltStack Enterprise API, and so it does require SaltStack Enterprise.
Great, thank you. So there are a few SaltStack specific questions that I'll make sure that we have someone reach out and answer. For ServiceNow integration questions, so I will say that on our roadmap there's a question in here about the ServiceNow CMDB. So today this SaltStack integration does not directly interface with the ServiceNow CMDB. However, that is something we're exploring. So if you're interested in that, please reach out. What we find is there's a kind of a wide range of use cases and ways that customers want to go about doing this. And so we want to collect all the data and feedback we can on this. So if that's something you're interested in and would like, especially if you're already a SaltStack Enterprise customer, please reach out. And with that, I'll move to kind of the next slide here. So let us know, raise your hand. We'd love to continue the conversation with you. We're about out of time for today, guys, but thank you so much for attending this. Please make sure to leave feedback and let us know how we did. If you have additional questions or comments, please reach out on the contact form. Check out the links and the attachments that we've provided. Again, this is sort of a phase one of this integration. We've already had a lot of excitement about it from our customers, but we're always looking for ways that we can improve and things we can add to our roadmap. So let us know, and I hope you have a great weekend. and we'll look forward to speaking with you. Thank you.